Alright, today I'm going to show you how to do the blower motor on a F10 M5. This is mine. You might have seen it in my other introduction video. So today I've got a couple of tools that you'll need. You'll need some Torx. You just need simple ones. This is a fancy Milwaukee one. And you just need a ratchet. I've got my Milwaukee gun to make things easier, but you don't really need that. You need a trim removal tool. I'd recommend a swivel head 16 millimeter and this one's a deep socket just because I lost my normal size socket, but if you have a normal size socket, use that instead. I'd recommend a magnetic pickup because there's a lot of little bolts there that can drop into tight places that you won't be able to reach. I recommend an extension, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and also a 10 millimeter because you're probably going to need to take off the negative terminal on your battery. That's the first thing you're going to want to do, because once you get the cover off over here, you're going to have to take off the fuse box, and to do that you're going to have to take off the positive cable. And unless you want to set a bunch of faults in your car, just take off the negative in your trunk first, then come take off the fuse box. So I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so get your 10 mil, come to the trunk, and in the F10 you've got a little pull strap to pull the trunk mat up. So just go ahead and do that. Actually, I'm gonna grab this shirt right here to cover up the terminal with. So just go ahead and lift this up, and then you're just gonna take off your terminal right here. So 10 mil. All right, so after you've taken off the negative terminal on your battery, you can come back up to the front. And the next thing we're gonna wanna do is remove the 3 clips that hold this little panel down here. I'm actually missing one. The car came like that, I'm not sure why. Maybe somebody did this before. And we're gonna take this one out here. So to actually take these out, you just pry up right here. For those of you that haven't done this before, you just pry up right there, and sometimes the middle part will come out, but usually it comes out in one piece like that. Set it in your magnetic tray. Let me move this shirt a bit because this panel comes up right here. So just go ahead and pull that up. It pops right out. Set it aside. And the next thing we're going to need to do is get these 1, 2, 3. There should be 4 Torx bolts, but again, mine's missing one. So go ahead and take those off. Those are what size is this? Let me check. So to take off that fuse box, you're gonna need this Torx, which is a T25. So, all right, so once this bolts are loose around this cover, you pretty much just pick it up. Be careful not to drop any of the bolts out, and make sure that all of them are all the way out, because this one's hanging on by half a thread. So just pick it up out of there, and then we're just gonna set it to the side. I'm actually gonna set this one on the ground just so those bolts don't decide to fall anywhere in this engine bay, because there's a lot of places inside here for it to fall. So the next thing you're gonna need to do is disconnect the positive terminal here. Again, this is a 10 mil. Once you disconnect that, you're gonna take off this Torx here. This is another T25, and then this is gonna flip up out of the way. All right, so once those bolts are out, just pick the bar up, take it out of the way. You don't have to take this bar out, but it gives you a little more room, makes things more easier. I like it that way. So now let's flip this up out of the way. Don't scratch your hood up. And the next thing you're gonna wanna take off is the blower motor housing cover. Okay, so before I talk about how I created this new filter cover for the blower motor housing cover, I'm gonna show you how I got it out of the car. So there's one T25 Torx that goes there. There's another one that goes here, here, and here. So there's 4 total. So to actually get to these 2, you're gonna need an extension for that one. And for this one, you're kind of blocked by the windshield cowl. So there's very limited space. So just be sure not to drop the bolt or your socket or your Torx bolt, whatever you're using. So I've actually went to Home Depot and got some metal window cover, and I basically just zip tied it to the posts on the housing cover. So here's the back side. It's just zip tied, and I just kind of punch the zip ties through there. It kind of goes through there easy without really compromising the net's filtering capability. So I just did that because if you've seen these before on F10s, the styrofoam is completely disintegrated. It gets sucked into the blower motor, it kills the blower motor. That's exactly what happened to mine. That's why I'm changing this out, and that's why I'm making this tutorial. All right, so now that we got the blower motor housing cover out, you need to take the fresh air flap control assembly. So there's 1, 2, oops, getting focused there, 3 and 4 T20 Torx bolts. So go ahead and take those out, and then this thing just lifts out of here. To take this off, you pretty much just pull it up from its spot. It might be a little clip in there, and then you just route the cable out. There's going to be 2 more connections here. There's one there and one here. They're kind of hard to get to, but you can do it if you try. Get a small screwdriver, use your nail or like a pick, and then just pick it up out of there. And so I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so now that the bolts are loose in this flap control assembly, just go ahead and pick it up out of there. Like I said, there's 2 connections there, so you just take those off, and then you can actually get to the blower motor right there. So let's take these out. Okay, so now that all those plugs are disconnected right there, just route them out of the housing and then just pick it up out of here. Is there something else still hanging on? What is that? Oh, see, it's stuck right there. So now you just pick it up out of there. So this is your fresh air flap. So mine's open right now, or closed actually. So we'll set that there. And then now you're actually at the blower motor, and there's nothing holding this cover on, so just pull it up and out. It's actually attached to this plug right here, so just remove that plug, and then it comes right up and out. And before you go pick it up out of there, there's 1 plug on the bottom, so just don't rip it out, but it's pretty easy to pick up and take the plug out. All right, so right here I've got my new blower motor. It's a Molly branded one. I decided to get a German branded one. And here is your blower motor and the housing for it. So there's 4 T20 Torx holding the blower motor inside the housing. They're right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you take it out, the plug is just kind of held inside of a little rubber holder there, and then that's where you unplug it from the blower motor resistor. The one on there is also Molly branded. So let's go ahead and take these bolts out and get the new blower motor in there. All right, so this is what it looks like when the housing comes apart after you've taken out the 4 Torx bolts, and the blower motor is free of the housing. So this is 2 halves, just set a half aside. And like I said, take this the wires out of the plug here. It just kind of pops out of there, and then remove the plug, and then you'll just have the housing. Okay, so now we've just got the blower motor's housing. So the resistor is still attached. It's right there. It has 2 T20 Torx bolts that hold it on. These tend to fail a lot as well, so you might just want to buy a new resistor as well. My car's mileage isn't that high, so I'm not going to replace it, and I wasn't even having symptoms for it. So all right, so I've got the new blower motor out of the box, and note the bracket on it because you're going to need to set it properly back in the housing so that it sits properly. So this is the receiving side, and then you have this one single side. So here are your receiving sides. The other half is for the single-sided square, which is right here. So go ahead and set it in the housing, and then put the other half to it, and put your 4 Torx bolts back, and we'll see what it looks like once it's back together. Okay, so the new blower motor is in the housing. It's all let me flip it around. it's all bolted up. All 4 bolts are back in. They're nice and tight. Looking fresh and clean. Very nice. I noticed that the blower motor I took out of the car has 1 of these metal clips on the blades, and this one has 2. I'm not going to touch this one because it came from the factory, and you're not really supposed to prepare them for installation other than swapping it in. So I'm going to assume it's fine. I'm just going to guess this one's better quality. Maybe it's better balanced. Okay, so we've got the new blower motor installed in the housing. We're back at the front of the car, and we've got a new filter screen on the blower motor housing cover, and it's properly secured and trimmed down to help ease of installation. So the reverse of installation is going to go like this. You're going to put the blower motor in first, set it down in its housing. You're going to put this cover over the blower motor, and this side should be closest to the firewall of the car. This kind of sits in that direction. And then next, you're gonna put your flap control on top of that right there. Then you're gonna go ahead and put the blower motor housing cover on top of that. And then you're gonna flip your fuse box back on top of your blower motor housing cover. And then you're gonna take your fuse box top, you're gonna put it back. Then you're gonna put this brace back on your engine bay. And remember, those are 16mm bolts. Don't forget to hook everything up, guys. So remember, on your flap control, you have 2 connections. So there's one here, and then there's a wiring loom that runs across this channel here. It goes under this clip here, and then clips onto the side right there. So don't forget to do that. Those are the only plugs that you need to remember. Once you set this in, there's another plug, remember, on the left side. That is this plug here that sits on the side of this right here. So I'll show you what that looks like once it's sitting back in the car. So the blower motor's sitting down in there again. So you want to just get this thing in there as well. This is just like a little cover that sits in there. Make sure you don't trap any wires. Grab those and get them out of the way. And then there's a couple of plugs that are catching. So set that down in there. A lot of these plugs will catch if you don't keep them out of the way, so just try to match them up. So there you go. This is sitting on the posts here, sitting down in there flat. This thing should be flush once you have it in properly, so don't forget to do that. And then you can go ahead and put this on the clip here. This one comes up from the bottom actually. So you would just catch it on there, slide it upward, and then you'll hear it click. So you know it's on there properly. And then this wire is supposed to go in that little hook there to keep it out of the way of things. So yeah, the blower motor's sitting down in there now. You have the cover back on. So just do the reverse installation of everything. Remember, there's 4 T25 bolts on the cover there. That's the housing cover. And then there's 4 T20 Torx bolts on the flap control assembly and motor. So just put everything back together, and then we'll see what it looks like when it's all back together. All right, so now we've got everything back together after doing the blower motor on the F10 M5. So remember, this car is German, so I don't have the torque for this, so just do it good and tight. Same with these. I'm not sure what the torque is, but don't do them too hard. I'd recommend using a hand ratchet rather than an electric, so you don't get it too tight. Make sure your atmosphere sensor is plugged in right there on the housing cover. Make sure you didn't catch any wires on the lids here, anything like that, and you should be good to go. All right, so that was the F10 blower motor installation and reinstallation. So I've got the old one sitting right here. I've got the box for the new one sitting here. It's Molly branded. If this video helped you, please leave a like and consider subscribing. Peace.